name is Matthew, and I'm 32 years old now. But what I'm about to tell you happened when I was 17, working summer nights at my uncle's farm in rural Missouri. I've never spoken about this publicly before, because honestly, I didn't think anyone would believe me. But after all these years, I still can't sleep without checking the shadows in my room first. This is my story. The summer of 2009 was supposed to be easy money. My uncle needed help maintaining his 200-acre property, and I needed cash for college. The deal was simple. I'd stay in the farmhouse, feed the livestock, and handle the night watch. Uncle Dave had been losing chickens to what he called coyotes, so he wanted someone to keep an eye out after dark. The farm was isolated. I mean really isolated. The nearest neighbor was 4 miles down a dirt road, and cell service was non-existent. Just me, the animals, and about 40 acres of dense woods surrounding the property. The first 2 weeks were uneventful. Quiet. Almost too quiet, you know. But I didn't think much of it. I'd do my rounds every night around 11 p.m., check the chicken coop, make sure the barn was locked, and then head back to watch TV until I passed out. But on the 15th night, that's when things changed. I was doing my usual rounds when I noticed the barn door was open. Not just unlocked open, swinging slightly in the wind. I knew I'd locked it earlier. I remembered pulling the latch and hearing it click. I grabbed my flashlight and walked toward the barn, my boots crunching on gravel. The night was still. No crickets, no frogs, just silence. That unnatural kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. I pushed the barn door wider and swept my flashlight inside. The horses were in their stalls, but they were acting strange. Both of them pressed against the far wall, eyes wide, nostrils flaring. They were terrified. That's when I heard it. A sound I can only describe as wet breathing, like someone or something was inhaling through a mouthful of liquid. It was coming from the hayloft above me. I should have run. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to turn around and leave, but I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe it was teenage stupidity. Maybe it was curiosity. But I pointed my flashlight up toward the loft, and I saw it. At first, I thought it was a person crouching in the shadows, but as my light swept across it, I realized it wasn't. Its limbs were too long, bent at angles that didn't make sense. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, stretched tight over a skeletal frame. But the worst part? Its face. It didn't have one. Where a face should have been, there was just smooth skin, except for a vertical slit that opened and closed like a mouth breathing. No eyes, no nose, just that slit, pulsing with each wet, rattling breath. I stumbled backward, dropping my flashlight. It clattered on the barn floor, and the beam spun wildly. In that split second of darkness, I heard movement, fast, scuttling across the wooden beams above me. I ran. I didn't stop running until I was inside the farmhouse with every door locked and every light on. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely grip my phone. Not that it mattered. No signal. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe I was overtired. But deep down, I knew what I'd seen. And I knew it wasn't human. I stayed awake that entire night, sitting in the living room with a shotgun across my lap. Every creak of the house made me jump. Every shadow felt like it was watching me. Around 3 a.m., I heard scratching. At first, I thought it was coming from outside, but then I realized it was coming from under the house. Something was in the crawl space, dragging its claws across the wooden floorboards. The scratching moved, slowly, deliberately, like it was mapping out the house. It stopped directly beneath where I was sitting. And then silence. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just sat there, staring at the floor, waiting for something to burst through. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Time didn't feel real anymore. When the sun finally came up, I ran outside to my truck and didn't look back. I called my uncle from town and told him I quit. He tried to convince me to come back. Said I probably just saw a sick deer or a wild dog, but I refused. I didn't go back to that farm for years. I tried to forget about it, move on with my life. But 3 months ago, my uncle called me. He sounded different, scared. He told me that after I left, more livestock went missing. Not just chickens, cows. Full-grown cattle, gone without a trace. No blood, no tracks. Just gone. Then one night, his neighbor, the guy 4 miles down the road, went missing too. They found his truck abandoned on the side of the highway. Driver's door open, key still in the ignition. No signs of struggle. No body. But they found something else. In the woods near my uncle's property, they discovered a series of caves. Deep, winding tunnels that went down into the earth. And inside those caves, they found bones. Hundreds of them. Animal and human. The police sealed off the area. They said it was probably an old burial ground or a dumping site for poachers. But my uncle told me something they didn't release to the public. Inside one of those caves, they found claw marks on the walls. Fresh ones. And something else, skin. Pale, translucent skin, shed like a snake's, piled in the corners. My uncle asked me if I ever saw anything strange when I was working there. I lied. I told him no. Because if I told him the truth, that whatever was in those woods had been watching me, stalking me, I don't think I could live with the guilt of knowing I left him there alone with it. I still don't know what that thing was. But sometimes, late at night, I'll hear scratching. Faint, almost imperceptible. And I'll wonder if it followed me home. That was 10 years ago. I haven't been back to Missouri since. But every time I see a barn, every time I drive past farmland at night, I think about that thing in the hayloft. That faceless, breathing horror. And I wonder how many others have seen it too. My name is Jenna, and I'm 28 years old. I grew up in northern Michigan, where the woods stretch for miles and the winters are brutal. I've always loved hiking, always felt at home in the wilderness. But after what happened to me 3 years ago, I don't go into the woods anymore. I can't. This is my encounter. It was early November, just before deer hunting season. I'd taken a week off work to go hiking in the Upper Peninsula, a solo trip to clear my head after a rough breakup. I knew the area well. I'd been there dozens of times before. The trail I chose was a 12-mile loop that wound through dense pine forests and along the edge of a frozen lake. It was beautiful, peaceful, the kind of place where you could hear your own thoughts. I started early in the morning, around 7 a.m. The sun was just breaking through the trees, casting long shadows across the frost-covered ground. I had my backpack, my camera, and enough supplies for the day. Everything was perfect. Around mile 4, I stopped to take pictures of the lake. The ice was just starting to form along the edges, creating these beautiful crystalline patterns. I was crouched down, adjusting my camera, when I felt it. That feeling of being watched. You know the one. That primal instinct that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. I turned around slowly, scanning the tree line, and I saw it, about 50 yards away. Standing perfectly still between 2 pines was a deer, a massive buck with an impressive rack of antlers. It was staring directly at me. At first, I was excited. I'd never been that close to a buck before. I raised my camera, tried to get a shot, but something stopped me. The deer wasn't moving. At all. Not even breathing, as far as I could tell. It just stood there, staring, and its eyes were wrong. Deer have dark, glassy eyes that reflect light, but this thing's eyes were pale, almost white, and they didn't blink. I lowered my camera slowly, my excitement turning to unease. I took a step backward, and the deer tilted its head, not like an animal would, but like a person trying to mimic curiosity. I turned and kept walking, faster this time. I didn't look back for another half-mile, but when I did, it was still there. Closer now, maybe 30 yards behind me, still staring, still not moving right. Its legs bent at strange angles, like it was struggling to stand upright. And it wasn't walking, it was jerking forward. One stiff movement at a time, like a stop-motion animation. I started running. I don't know why I didn't scream. Maybe because there was no one around to hear me. Maybe because some part of me knew that making noise would make it worse. I ran for what felt like forever, my breath coming in ragged gasps, my legs burning. The trail twisted and turned, and I kept glancing over my shoulder. It was keeping pace. No matter how fast I ran, it was always the same distance behind me, 30 yards, jerking forward with those broken, unnatural movements. And then I heard it make a sound. It sounded like my voice, distorted and echoing, but unmistakably mine. It was calling my name, Jenna. I stopped dead in my tracks, not because I wanted to, but because my body just froze. Every muscle locked up. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The thing was 10 yards away now, and as it got closer, I could see details I wished I hadn't. Its antlers weren't antlers. They were bones, human bones, twisted and fused into the shape of a rack. Its fur was matted and rotting, falling off in patches to reveal gray, decaying skin underneath. And its mouth, when it opened its mouth, I saw rows of teeth. Not deer teeth, human teeth. Stained and broken, but human. Something inside me snapped. I don't know what, survival instinct, adrenaline, but I moved. I bolted off the trail and into the dense woods, crashing through underbrush and low-hanging branches. Behind me, I heard it following, not jerking anymore, running, on all fours, fast and predatory. I saw a rocky outcrop ahead and scrambled up it, my hands scraping against stone. I wedged myself into a crevice and pulled my knees to my chest, trying to make myself as small as possible. I heard it stop at the base of the rocks, heard its wet, rasping breaths, heard it circling, sniffing, and then it spoke again. But this time, it wasn't my voice. It was my ex-boyfriend's voice, the one I'd just broken up with. It called out, "Jenna, please. I'm sorry. Come back." I stayed hidden for hours, long after the sun went down, long after I stopped hearing it. When I finally climbed down and made my way back to the trailhead, I ran to my car and drove straight to the nearest police station. I tried to explain what happened, but they dismissed it, said I probably saw a sick deer, and panic did the rest. But a week later, I got a call from a ranger. They'd found something in the woods near where I'd been hiking, a campsite. Abandoned, and inside the tent, they found a journal. The last entry was dated 2 months before my hike. It read, "It's been following me for 3 days. It looks like a deer, but it's not. It knows my name. It knows my voice. If anyone finds this, don't go into the woods near pictured rocks. Don't follow the deer. It's not a deer." They never found the person who wrote that journal. I don't hike alone anymore. Hell, I barely go outside, because I know what's out there. My name is Daniel, and I'm 41 years old. Something it killed. I work as a home inspector. Sometimes, late at night, I've crawled through more basements, I still hear it outside my window, and call my spaces than I can count. I've seen mold, rot, dead animals, you name it. But nothing, prepared me for what I found in a house in rural Vermont last year. This is what happened. The call came in on a Tuesday. A young couple had just bought an old farmhouse built in the 1800s and needed a full inspection before closing. Standard stuff. The realtor warned me the place was a bit run down, but that didn't bother me. Old houses are my specialty. I arrived around 10 a.m. The house was set back from the road, surrounded by overgrown fields and crumbling stone walls. It had that classic New England charm. White clapboard siding, black shutters, wraparound porch. Beautiful, really, but something felt off. Maybe it was the way the windows seemed darker than they should have been, or the fact that no birds were singing despite it being mid-spring. The couple met me outside. Nice people, excited about their first home. I did my usual walkthrough, checked the roof, the electrical, the plumbing. Everything was in decent shape for a house that age. Then I got to the crawl space. The entrance to the crawl space was in the basement, hidden behind a piece of plywood nailed to the wall. I pulled it off and shined my flashlight inside. It was tight, maybe 2 feet high. Dirt floor, stone foundation walls, cobwebs everywhere. I hate crawl spaces. Always have. But it's part of the job. I grab my gear and squeeze inside, dragging myself forward on my elbows. The air was cold and damp, and it smelled like earth and decay. I was about 15 feet in when my flashlight caught something on the ground. Scratches. Deep gouges in the dirt, like something had been dragged. I followed the marks with my light, and they led to the far corner of the crawl space, where the shadows were thickest. That's when I saw it. A pile of something. At first, I thought it was old burlap sacks or rotting fabric. But as I got closer, I realized what it was. Skin. Shed skin. Piled in the corner like discarded clothes. Translucent and papery. Still vaguely shaped like something humanoid. I should have left right then, but I didn't. I kept crawling closer, my rational brain trying to convince me it was just some kind of animal molt. And that's when I heard breathing. Not mine. Something else. Coming from deeper in the crawl space, beyond where my light could reach. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to back up, to get out. But I couldn't move. My body just locked up. The breathing got louder. Wet. Raspy. And then I heard movement. Something shifting in the darkness ahead of me. My flashlight flickered. Just for a second. But in that brief moment of dimness, I saw it. A shape. Crouched low against the foundation wall. Too big to be a raccoon. Too wrong to be human. Its skin was pale and slick, like it had just shed the pile I'd found. Its limbs were too long, folded unnaturally beneath it. And its head. God, its head was misshapen, bulbous, with no features except for a gaping mouth full of needle-like teeth. It was looking at me. I scrambled backward, kicking up dirt, my flashlight swinging wildly. The thing lunged forward fast, closing the distance between us in seconds. I felt something grab my ankle. Not a hand. Something hard and sharp, like claws digging into my boot. I screamed and kicked, connecting with something solid. It hissed, a sound that shouldn't come from any living thing, and released me. I didn't stop moving. I dragged myself backward through that crawl space faster than I've ever moved in my life, my heart hammering in my chest. I burst out of the entrance and slammed the plywood back over the opening, my hand shaking so badly I could barely hold the nails. I didn't tell the couple what I saw. How could I? They'd think I was insane. Instead, I told them the crawl space had severe structural issues and potential biohazard contamination. I recommended they seal it off permanently and never go down there. They thanked me and said they'd take care of it. I left that house and tried to forget about it. Tried to convince myself it was just a rabid animal or a hallucination from bad air quality. But 2 months later, I got a call from a local sheriff. The couple had gone missing. Their car was still in the driveway. The house was locked from the inside. No signs of struggle. But they were gone. The sheriff asked if I'd noticed anything unusual during my inspection. I lied, said everything seemed normal. But then he told me something that made my blood run cold. They'd found the plywood covering the crawl space entrance torn off from the inside, and leading from the basement to the upstairs bedroom were drag marks in the dust. 2 sets of drag marks. They searched the crawl space, found nothing except more of that shed skin. But when they brought in cadaver dogs, the dogs refused to go near the house. They never found the couple. I quit home inspection after that. Couldn't do it anymore, because now I know what's hiding in those dark, forgotten spaces beneath our homes. And I know it's still down there, waiting, molting, growing. Sometimes I wonder how many other houses have crawl spaces like that one. How many other inspectors have seen something and just walked away. And I wonder if it ever crawls out at night, dragging itself through quiet neighborhoods, looking for its next meal. I don't know, but I do know one thing. I'll never go into another crawl space again. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. These were 3 true creepy creature encounters that still haunt the people who experienced them. If you have your own story, share it in comments below. And remember, Sometimes the monsters are real,